This happened like 15 years ago. It was school holidays, and my friend, we'll call her Sarah, and I were extremely bored and just wanted to chill. This was summertime. We lived in a small town called New Braunfels in Texas. Everything kind of spread out. Anyways, it was around midnight, and we didn't know where to go. So we just decided to go to the park. It's a little big. We were there for an hour or so. Nothing unusual, until we both saw someone or something crouched on a table. First off, a little weird someone else being in the same park at this time. But what's creepy AF is that this person was crouching on top of a f***ing table. He wasn't even sitting on the bench. What really f***ed me up was, because I didn't look away, I kept looking closer. I noticed that there were wings. The body was completely human, but had fucking wings. The part that I'll never forget. All of a sudden, the most blood-curdling scream, like a woman being stabbed to death. But it sounded like a woman but unhuman at the same time. Like a scream that a normal person doesn't do, but a scream animals can't even make. Almost like those screams in a movie that a demon or something makes. Then it just stands up, and this fucker has to be 8 foot tall minimum. We both ran as fast as we could. Have you ever ran to your lungs' max capacity? I ran until I had no air left in my lungs, and then kept running until I had to slow down because I was coughing too much. We knocked on Pi's doors and kept getting threatened that they have guns and will shoot if we don't leave. We were literally locked outside with this thing. I kept looking into the sky because this reminded me of Jeepers Creepers the movie. After maybe 20 minutes, the police show up and, of course, think we're on drugs. But wanted to let us go. I walked the rest because I lived a few blocks away. The police drove my friend home. There was a white cop and a Mexican cop. When the Mexican cop heard the story, he pretended like it's just made up, but the look on his face said he knows something about this thing that nobody knows. I have PTSD now and hate going outside alone at night, especially near parks or the woods. Weird PPL don't really scare. Cops, animals don't really scare cops, but you know, it was something much worse if a cop lies and can't keep a straight face because of fear. Like I said, it's a story that happened and I remember clear as day, but a story nobody believes. Tried making it as short as possible. I'm not sure what this would fall under, but it definitely was the strangest experience I've had in years. I work a night shift for a warehouse, won't say, which since it's not important to the story, only that I was coming home around 3 a.m. Now I'm out in the country where my home is in the hills, and it's about half a mile from the main road. About halfway up the nice smooth road turns to dirt. As my wheels hit the dirt, I felt eyes watching me almost immediately, which normally I wouldn't care, cause it's normal to see wildlife watching me come up the road. Only as I got to my normal parking spot, I grabbed my pocket knife I keep in the glove box and stepped out. My eyes immediately turned to the direction of a dark patch of woods on the other side of the road. Something told me to look there, and I held my knife up calmly, saying, "I know you're there," as the words left my lips. The world went dead, quite, which is very strange, as there is a waterfall maybe 500 to 600 feet away from me, and I can always hear it when I come home, but even it went silent. It stayed like this for a good 10 seconds before the sound returned, and I heard something running away from me. I just kept my knife to my side and walked like I normally would to the house, as I felt like running would have been a bad idea. As I got in, I saw the dogs that normally greeted me weren't anywhere in sight, and they were in the living room, both looking out the window in the same direction I felt the gaze something from. I didn't say anything to my fiancée, as she was asleep, and she doesn't have a belief in the paranormal, as I do, coming from my Mapuche heritage, South American Indian tribe. I grew up on stories from my dad, and had heard the Native American stories of Wendigo, skinwalkers, and other spirits creatures, but since that night I've never felt that same presence. No idea what it could have been, I just know it wasn't deer like I'd normally see around my home. I used to live in this old house from about years 7 to 10 old, so this happened a while ago, but when me and my family, mom and twin sisters, both 4 at the time, moved, there was something kidna off about it. There was always this sense of dread there, and the type that will make you feel like you're being watched. But the most creepiest part of the house was this small closet underneath our stairs going down to the basement where me and my sisters slept, that I, in the 4 years of living there, none of us ever went into there because of how creepy it was, but that's besides the point. The first couple incidents that happened weren't really that big, just things like lights turning on when you thought you turned them off, and doors doing the same thing. But when then the more messed up stuff started happening. Most nights, when I tried to sleep, I always had this sense that someone was watching me in the pitch black, and some nights I couldn't even move. This one night when I was about 8, I couldn't sleep at all, and so I tried to sleep in my mom's bed that I lay out awake till about 2 in the morning until I started to get the feeling someone was watching me, and I couldn't move. That was until I heard my mom's music box start playing, then I was totally crap my pants scared, and then when I tried to wake my mom up it stopped. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Nothing really happened after that except me and my sisters slowly stopped sleeping in our room and started sleeping on the upstairs couch because we were so scared, and eventually my mom had to sell the house because we couldn't pay for it anymore. But on the last night that we were there, and one of my sisters decided that we were going to go into the closet and look behind the corner to just see what was there. And right as we were going around it, the door slammed shut and screamed and ran to the door, pushing one other out of the way, and we went to tell our family. They didn't believe us. Years later, I learned that the old man that made the house and lived in it also died in it. For some backstory, when I was a little kid, I lived in Miami. From the stories I've heard, the neighborhood I lived in was the hood. When I was about 5 years old, we left. So now into the dream, or should I say nightmare. My parents decided that we were going to visit our old house in that neighborhood in Miami. When we got there, we noticed it was blocked from the rest of the city with a tall metal gate going around the whole neighborhood. The gate didn't have an opening. Instead, it led to a small hallway kind of thing. For some reason, a kid from my current school was now there waiting at the gate with me and my family. So we got inside the neighborhood, and it was run down and broken. Fast forward a few hours in the dream, my fam and friend found my childhood house and decided to check it out. My brother went in his room, my parents in theirs, and my friend, my sister, and I were chilling in the living room. We were standing there for a few minutes when my little sister said something stupid to my friend, like something a 5-year-old would say. I can't really remember. He got pissed and turned to me and said he was going to hit her. He then proceeded to go into another room to get a golf club. I tried calming him down and calling my paren, but no one listened. In an effort to protect my sister, I took like 3 hits with the club. After a few more hits, he picked up my sister and bit her on the neck. I tackled him to the ground, still with my sister in his jaws. Blood everywhere. I tried to punch him, but it didn't do crap, but I kept trying. A few more seconds, and I stared, jabbing a stick into his rib cage, but nothing was working. The cops came and took him away. The look in his eyes were unforgettable. I've never seen so much hate in someone's eyes. We stayed in that house for years. I was watching the news one day on the TV that just appeared in the house. It said that my friend went crazy in prison and stayed in his cell for days, never touching light, and that he carved a smile into his face. At the end of the broadcast, it said that he went missing from his cell a few days ago. I broke down because I knew he was coming for me. I grabbed a knife and tried to kill myself. Before I got the chance, I looked behind me, and there he was, bleached white skin, wearing all black, and with a bloody smile on his face. He aggressively yelled suicide and slit my throat. That was one of the most vivid nightmares I've ever had. It was trippy seeing that same friend at school the next day. The closest thing I could find to the look in his eyes in that nightmare was a picture of Jeff, the killer, but you probably won't find it. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, my sisters and I used to share a room. Most nights, my older sister and I would see two distinct figures. She would see a lady in white standing in the doorway, directly in front of my bed. I would see a man with red eyes, or at least I thought it was a man, as all I could see were red eyes. Though my sister could see the lady, she said she never as spoke to her. She just stood there getting closer every night. While I, on the other hand, would see a pair of bright red eyes staring at me from the closet. A disembodied masculine voice would whisper, "JJ, come to the closet and play," over and over. Sometimes my older sister and I would jump in each other's beds and hide under the blankets until morning. This was going on for months until my dad decided to get the house blessed again. We never saw them after that. I'm 24 now, my wife and I recently had a baby. I've been having weird dreams recently. They would always start with me standing in my son's room, staring at the closet, and the familiar set of red eyes would stare back at me. My most recent dream, he actually spoke, his voice a lot deeper and booming than I remember. "You didn't come play with me, but your son may be the one to play," he said before I woke up. I called my dad and told him about the whole thing. He told me he remembers me telling him about that man years before. But just then, he went silent for about 5 minutes. When he spoke again, he recounted seeing the same figure as a child. He also told me he remembered having the same dream after I was born. I've blessed my house twice already, but I can only protect my son so much. I just hope, I really, really hope, that he doesn't go play in the closet. I may never see him again. In my old house, a ton of weird crap happened. One time I pretended to be sick so could stay home from school, so me and my mom were the only two in the house. My mother worked from home on a computer and had to talk to people who struggled with quitting smoking. Her room was kind of close to mine, so I woke up at about 9 o'clock in the morning to a feeling I was being watched. I thought it was my mom checking on me, but a few seconds later I heard her talking in her room. I ripped the covers off my head, but to my surprise, there was no one there. I was certain that there was someone else in my room. As you might know if you read my ghost story, I don't usually interfere with the paranormal, but I felt brave this time, so I just sat up in my bed till I felt like I wasn't being watched anymore. As soon as I got up off my bed, I heard breathing. I thought it was just the sound the bed made from me getting up, or my foot brushing the floor. But the sound kept going, and then I realized that there is no mistaking that sound. It was someone breathing. I felt calm when the thought of it just being my mom in the other room, breathing loud. But then I heard her talking again to her client on her work computer, but the breathing overlapped her talking, and it sounded very close. I spent the next 5 minutes looking around the room, then I just sat down on my bed, and it got louder. The sound was coming from under my bed. I slowly lifted up the mattress. I heard the breathing slow down as if it was trying to be more quiet, but there was no one, nothing. Nothing was there. Yet when I moved closer, I could still hear it louder than ever. There were no vents or anything that could be making that sound under my bed. I decided to just ignore it and go downstairs and watch Scooby-Doo. I never told anyone, not sure why, but I didn't, and I never heard it again. 2019, my family and I were on a vacation, likely Hawaii or something of the sort. We were in our hotel room, hanging out and chilling from a day of excitement. I felt like I was much younger at the time because I wasn't that familiar with the internet, such as Reddit and Discord. I still watched Dan TDM, and mentally at the time, I felt like a kid when the creepiest thing happened. Now, before I get into the story, here is some context. I wasn't all that new to Minecraft. This was on my iPad that was fairly old. At the time, I couldn't get on multiplayer for some reason. due mostly to because I probably didn't have an Xbox Live account at the time. I have had many encounters with things that seemed off when playing Minecraft. The story was lowly exaggerated, and because this was from 2019, I do not remember all of it, but the important parts, such as me giving my info out and giving them permissions exe. If anyone would like to hear my other stories, comment if you'd like. I have many other experiences. Without further interruption, here is the story of my single-player experience. I was logging on to my single-player world in Minecraft, as usual. I was building my house in creative mode and feeding my dogs. Then I saw something in chat. I do not remember their user, so I will refer to them as Anonymous. Anonymous has joined the Gamel. Hello, I said, being somewhat confused. Are you a kid? I asked. Janonymous, yes. I am. Are you in hotel also? I was very hyped to see someone else in the same hotel as me. I wasn't thinking at the time and was very vulnerable and easy manipulated. I said. Then I made the worst mistake I could have. Anonymous, what's your room number? I took a few minutes to think. I typed out my real room number, then was changing it to something different. Then I accidentally clicked enter. I gave out my actual room number. At this point, I gave the person the rank operator, so they could ruin my world with commands and blow anything up. I trusted the person, but then my anxiety kicked in when they said this. Anonymous, okay, be right back. I waited 5 to 10 minutes. Later, a knock on our door. It was someone delivering mail. My heart rushed about what could be sent to us. There was just mail, nothing suspicious. Anonymous left the Gamel. I checked multiplayer, and there was a world. Curious enough, I joined it. To my surprise, it was the person who I talked to earlier. On my world, they didn't say anything, so I left very impatiently. I was waiting for a movie to be played on the TV, the premiere of Descendants 3, winky face. Watched all of the movies, and now just waiting for the third. We watched IT with no problems. Fast forward to after the vacation. I found an old note that said, meet me at the balcony on it. It dated back to the time we spent at the hotel. This happened to me a few years ago, and it is still one of the creepiest experiences of my life. This may seem underwhelming for some, but this is my personal paranormal experience, so here you go. My friend's dad passed away from cancer in 2010, and this was around 2013/2014, I think in the fall, because trees were dead/dying. I went to the movies with my girlfriend, my friend, and my girlfriend's friend. We were dropping her friend off at her house, but it was a bit of a ride because she lived way in the back of the woods. Anyway, we're all talking about the movie we saw and laughing and jamming out to music, but I noticed my friend in the back suddenly was quiet and looking behind us. I thought it was weird, but didn't say anything. We get to the house, and my girlfriend had to get something out of her friend's house. I don't remember what it was, but while the two girls were out of the car, my friend suddenly says to me, this may sound weird, but I saw my dad in the woods, like only 10 feet or so away in the woods, standing in the trees. I was blown away and said, so is that why you were so quiet? He just said, yeah, I feel really weird and just want to get home. I should probably mention at this point that he constantly said how his house was haunted, and weird things always happen, but none of us ever experienced anything, so we didn't really know what to make of it. So we drop my girlfriend off, and we head to his house. When you walk in, it's the family room. Straight ahead are the kitchen and living room, and to the left there are 2 bedrooms and a bathroom in a cross-like pattern. His room was a doorway in the family room that led upstairs and was a renovated attic. I was waiting on the couch while he heads upstairs to get his stuff because he felt really uneasy and was going to crash at my place for the night. While I'm waiting on the couch, I suddenly hear from the left, where the crossway of the rooms are, very solid footsteps. It was a hardwood floor, and there was no mistaking the heel to toe movement. It sounded like boots heading straight towards me on the couch. At this point, I turn to get up and head to his room, which the door then flies open, and he's in the doorway and says, "You need to come up and see this." Now, I wasted no time getting up and sprinting up the steps. His room was a complete mess, and not the way we saw it when we left, and on his bed was a photo of him and his dad that went missing months ago. His mom and uncle, who both lived in the house, weren't even home that night, and later said they didn't even know the photo went missing. He then asked why I looked so freaked out when he opened the door, and I told him about the footsteps I heard coming right towards me. The creepy thing about that is that he heard them from upstairs as well. Needless to say, we got out of the house and slept at my place that night.